Another method you may use to solve a quadratic equation is called the quadratic formula. This is the #1 method that I remember from when I was a kid, is the quadratic method. What happens if the quadratic equation cannot be factored? Does that mean there is no solution? No, it means that the solution is not a rational solution. We have another method to solve quadratics. We'll use the quadratic formula. This method can be used to solve all quadratic equations. That's why this is the #1 method, in my opinion, to solve a quadratic equation. First step, find A, B, and C for the equation, and then plug in A, B, and C into the quadratic formula and solve. The formula states x equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and all of that's divided by 2a. Now you might notice the plus or minus. That means you have to do it 2 times. You got to do it where you add it. You got to do it where you subtract it. Okay, so now let's look at #1. A is 1, B is -5, C is -6. Now let's plug that in. -b. Well, b is already a negative, so that becomes a positive, and I get 5 plus or minus the square root of -5 squared minus 4 times 1 times -6, and all of that's being divided by 2 times 1, which is just 2. Now, you follow the order of operations. This is a glorified order of operations problem. Okay? Now, I would highly recommend be very neat, very organized, very tedious when doing these problems. They are not hard. It's just a lot of work. First step, do what's in the parentheses, and I get -6. -6 times -4 gives me positive 24. So 5 plus or minus the square root of -5 squared plus 24. All that divided by 2. -5 to the second power is going to be 25. And I get 5 plus or minus the square root of 25 plus 24. All of that divided by 2. I'm running out of room, so 25 plus 24 is 49, so I have 5 plus or minus the square root of 49 divided by 2. Square root of 49 is 7, so I have 5 plus or minus 7 divided by 2. Now, this is where the only part you have to do 2 times. 5 plus 7 is 12 over 2, and I get 6. 5 minus 7 is -2 divided by 2, and I get -1. So my answers are 6 or -1. The last example that I want to do is 3x squared plus 2x minus 2 equals 0. First step, always identify A, B, and C, and make sure it's set to 0. That's #1. Step 2, identify A, B, and C. A is 3, B is 2, C is -2. Now let's plug it in, and I get -2 plus or minus the square root of 2 squared minus 4 times 3 times -2. And all of that's divided by 2 times 3. Okay? -2 plus or minus 4. 4 times 3 is 12. Times -2 is -24 times -1, and I'm going to get positive 24. All of that divided by 6. I now combine like terms in here, and I get -2 plus or minus the square root of 28 divided by 6. 28 is not a perfect square. That's my answer.